We've been here for, not here in this building, but we've been going for just over 190 years. And I just want to tell you, I've got something incredibly precious in here, which I just want to show you. If you go right back to 1819, so that's 190, who's good at maths? 192 years ago, in Manchester, there was a protest. So there were lots of things wrong with Britain at the time. Women didn't have the vote, only rich people had the vote. It was very tough times, and so lots of people got together in the square in Manchester, in Peterloo Square, and they had a peaceful protest, and they said, this is bad. And the magistrates, which was like the government or the police at the time, rode into the crowd with horses and with swords, and they just attacked the protesters, and they killed nearly 20 of them, and they injured about 700 of them. And there was a man in the crowd called John Edward Taylor who thought, I've got to tell the truth about what happened before the police and the magistrates come out with their version of it, which is bound to be wrong. And so he wrote it up and he smuggled it down to London, and it was published in London. And that was the way that the world knew that something terrible had happened that day. And then he came out to Manchester and he thought, I'm going to start a newspaper. I'm going to start my own newspaper, and I'm going to call it The Guardian. So it's going to be The Guardian, like a protector of people, and it's going to be called The Manchester Guardian. And in here is the very first copy of The Manchester Guardian. It's incredibly rare, and that was it. And ever since then, for 190 years, we've been publishing the Manchester Guardian. So it was May the 5th, 1821. And in those days they had advertisements all over the front page. And if you want your news, you had to turn inside. And nowadays, you probably have, most of you don't read a newspaper, do you? No.
A few hands.
A few hands, okay. How many, most of you have got one of these. And so that's the journey we're on. So we're on the journey in which we still publish a newspaper. We still tell the truth about what's going on. And there are still things that, to our minds, are still scandals going on in the world. And whether it's what's going on in Syria and people, the same story, that innocent people are being murdered by powerful people. Essentially what happened in Syria last week, where lots of children were killed, was exactly the same story as the Peterloo massacre. And what you need is journalists who can bear witness and say what happened.
That's brilliant, thank you very, very much. Yes, we've got a few questions to ask you, if that's okay.
What made you want to be a journalist?
Well, that first day that I went out, so that was my hometown, which was Guildford, and I went out with another reporter, and there was somebody who had been going into the back gardens of houses in Guildford, killing pet rabbits. Sounds a terrible thing. And it was a kind of sort of mystery, you know, why would somebody go into the back gardens and kill pet rabbits? And the reporter I was with went from house to house, building up this picture of people who had had their rabbits killed in their back gardens. And it sounds a weird thing because it was a very sad story, but it was tremendous fun, sort of just going around trying to solve this mystery of who was this mystery rabbit killer. The next day I went in, and I think I was probably sent down to court to sit in the back of a court. And courts are really interesting places because they're all about drama and crime and murder and stuff like that. And then the next day I was probably sent off to review a theatre production or something. And suddenly I got this idea that there was this wonderful job in which you never knew what you were going to do in the morning, and you had complete permission to, not only permission, it was your job just to look at the infinite variety of what people do, whether it's acting, murdering, running things, slaying rabbits. And that's been true of my life ever since.
How do you get your stories and how do you know they are true?
There are about 4 or 5 news agencies. These are groups of journalists which are all over the world or all over Britain who send stories to everyone. And then you make a decision based on that to say, well, I think that story is more important. So that's the next place where stories come from, because you then send your reporter to this place, and then your reporter digs around and they send their stories in, which will be different from what the wires are picking up. And the third place you tend to get stories from is from readers. So The Guardian is now got about 71 million readers a month. If you say to them, actually, we want you to be our reporters, you could see this on Twitter. That's what Twitter is. Twitter is like a newswire in which lots of people are reporting, which leads on to your second question is, okay, that's great, but how do you know it's true? So therefore, we have to use our skills as a reporter to work out if it's true.
What were your feelings when the news website won an award for being voted the best in the world?
Quite pleased. Nowadays, we don't come in the morning and just look at the Times and the Independent and Telegraph and the Mail and think those are our competitors. We also think Yahoo is our competitor, Twitter is our competitor, Facebook is our competitor, Google is our competitor, the BBC is our competitor, the New York Times is our competitor. So if somebody comes along and says, congratulations, you're not only a great newspaper, but you are the best website as well, that shows that you've made an incredibly important step into what the future of news is.
Why is the Education Centre important to you?
The purpose of having the Education Centre was to get, in a small way, just to expose lots of young people, even if it's just one day out of your life, where you come in and you have to make those choices. And you have to decide what's going to go on the front page. And you're going to have all this wire copy coming in, and you have to write up the version of the truth. And so 85,000 people, if you all go out and tell 10 friends about what you've done today, that's 850,000 people. That's nearly 1 million people. So that seems to me quite a good thing from one little room in a newspaper. Nearly 1 million people grow up thinking, there's something in this news business after all. And so actually every time you go on Facebook and say, hey, this happened to me today, you're doing what a journalist does. And quite often the best advice is to start very narrowly with something that is your passion. Somebody give me one of their passions. Who's passionate about what? Football. Okay. So my advice would be, you don't write about Manchester United. Get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller to the thing that you know about, the school team that you know about, and you will have a small audience to begin with, but it's what you know about. And then you write brilliantly about that team and take pictures of them and video them and build a little website that's about that team. You are all journalists already, so there's nothing to stop you. You have fun today, because remember, journalism is fun.